What?
Are you, gonna die soon?
No, I hadn't planned on it.
Usually people don't last this long.
Aren't you supposed to, like, maybe play something terrible? Or something else? I mean, I'm just kind of bored at this point.
I mean, I've been making you play this game for a while.
I'm not gonna die over it.
And hey, weren't you gonna, like, play Sonic Blast or something?
Yeah, I decided I don't want to do that review right now. I'm just not in the mood to do it. I mean, I was gonna go through and review that and a bunch of other really shitty games, but, you know, I don't really feel like playing them.
Right, I get that.
Plus, that would basically require this whole thing to end with a huge fight between you and me, and every other reviewer does that with their worst enemy or something, and I think that's really cliche and dumb, and, I don't really want to be cliche and dumb.
Yeah, I got you. Well, see, I kind of need to make a deal with you on something.
What kind of deal?
Well, see, I kind of have other people that have played Sonic R 100% that I need to go terrorize.
Yep.
And I'm kind of not omnipotent.
You aren't?
So, I'm kind of need to go sometime, so I can offer you a deal.
Okay.
Well, how about this? How about I go off and terrorize a bunch of people, and I'll come back and we'll deal with you later. You can play whatever you want, and review whatever you want until I come back, and then we have to play Sonic Blast. Does that sound fair?
That actually sounds alright, except for the whole you coming back part.
Well, that's cool with you.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
Awesome.
Great.
Totally.
Wonderful.
Fantastic.
Love it.
Excellent.
See ya.
Bye.
In your mind's eye.
Hey guys, now that I have finally gotten a break from evil demonic forces beyond my power to control, I have decided to, instead of reviewing a really terrible game, actually review a pretty good game series that I played when I was a kid. Specifically, Vectorman. The Vectorman games sort of represent the final breaths of the Sega Genesis before it finally died, as they were released fairly late in the Genesis' life cycle, as late as 1996. So, this is kind of the last-ditch effort to breathe some life into a dying console, but tell you what, if you want to send off a console with something great, look no further than Vectorman. Just the title screen alone in the first game tells you you're in for something pretty fantastic. Now you sit there and tell me that wasn't freaking awesome, especially playing on a Sega Genesis. That's one of the things about Vectorman. It showed off a significant leap in graphical presentation, showing off visuals that people didn't think the Genesis could really handle at the time, or still today. It adopts a unique shading style that gives the sprites the illusion that they're three-dimensional. Sort of like Donkey Kong Country, I think that's a fair comparison, but I think it's more well done here, in my opinion. Not that Donkey Kong Country doesn't look nice, but it's a similar style. But it isn't just the shading style that gives the Vectorman games an edge. Water effects, visual effects, the animations are smooth as silk. Everything just looks fantastic, and yes, I know graphics don't make a game, but if there was ever a time I would honestly say play the game for the visuals, it'd probably be Vectorman. In addition, the music is kick-ass. The game has some fantastic techno beats to go with it, and it really fits the style of the game. Before I get into the gameplay, let me talk about the story, because yeah, there's actually a story here. Basically, Vectorman is set in the post-apocalyptic future, where trash has been built up so much that humans have been forced to leave the planet. And mind you, this was the mid-90s, so it was considered the cool thing to preach about how you're destroying the environment, and if you don't recycle, you're a horrible person. They left behind robots to clean up their mess called Orbots, and what happens is somehow one of the Orbots accidentally attaches a nuclear missile to the leader of the Orbots, whose name is Raster, and thus Warhead is born. Now, I just want to stop and say, holy shit, guys. Look at this picture. Like, just look at this guy. I can poke holes in his origin story, and I can say that Vectorman is not exactly the most plot-driven game in the world, but if there was ever a time I would say one picture sums up a compelling villain, it is this image, right here. He just looks like he's about to come to your house and knock it the fuck down, because he doesn't give a goddamn shit. Anyway, Warhead uses his power to control the other Orbots and orders them to prepare for when the humans return, so they can just destroy them. Because look at this guy, he doesn't give a shit. Anyway, Vectorman, who is an Orbot himself, was actually away from Earth, dropping a load of toxic sludge into the sun, which apparently is their way of disposing of the stuff. And thus, he was spared from Warhead's, little mind control ray thingy, whatever the heck he did. And so, he decides to go on a quest to save the world. Because he does that. Because he's made of balls. Yeah. Now, I would sit here and say, oh, the plot is kind of silly, because, why doesn't, Warhead just redo the whole mind control thing to control Vectorman, and why did that one Orbot attach a nuclear bomb to the leader of the Orbots, and, didn't Raster, say anything? Wasn't he like, hey, man, you really shouldn't do that, and this begs the question, are nuclear bombs, or missiles, whatever it is, in the future, pre-programmed to be evil, and have this benevolence for the human race, and if so, that is not something you should program into your mass destruction bombs. That seems like something to avoid, to pre-program benevolence and destruction for the human race. I know that's their purpose, to kill people, but you shouldn't make them want to do that, is my point. But whatever. Anyway, to get into the gameplay, it's probably appropriate to describe Vectorman as a run-and-gun sort of game. It's a platformer, yes, but there's a ton of combat in it, where you go around destroying enemies, jumping over them, using your jet boosters, things like that. And it does make for a really fun experience. There are power-ups you can get to change your weapon, but the most interesting part, in my opinion, is the fact that Vectorman can take basically any form he wants. Some power-ups will transform him into things like jackhammers and bombs, which confuses the living crap out of me, not sure how that works. But my point is that having a character who can basically take any form he chooses definitely makes for some creative gameplay elements. In addition, the bosses are pretty decent, nice variety here. What I will say is that the game is tough. I mean, this game is hard. It's not the hardest game in the world, but it will definitely kick your ass, and you should definitely be prepared for that if you haven't played it before. I don't see anyone being able to beat this game in their first try, and I think what makes the whole thing a lot more difficult is the fact there's no password system as far as I know. So if you lose all your lives and game over, you get to start all over again. Yeah, one of those games. Not that really makes it bad. It's fairly generous with lives, so you won't start really losing until the later levels, but you definitely want to go into this game being prepared to get your ass kicked. Before I say the game is completely awesome in every conceivable way, though, I will be the first to admit that the game has some flaws. It's not a perfect experience by any means. I mean, it's great, don't get me wrong, it's a fantastic game, and if you haven't played it, you definitely should, but it's got a few issues. One, I'm sorry, the password thing, or lack thereof, is really frustrating to me. I don't know why games didn't feel the need to include that. I know Sonic 2 didn't have it either, and a lot of Genesis games didn't have it, but really, with a game this hard and no way to pick up where you left off, that is definitely a frustrating aspect to me. Another thing is that the game tends to reuse backdrops a few times. Not horribly so, but there are times when I can tell where they reuse some data to make the level still look nice. Maybe to save space, maybe the graphics were taking up a lot of room on the cartridge, I don't know. But there are some rehashed environments, just a bit. Also, some of the levels get really frickin' weird. Where am I? Seriously, what the fuck is this place? I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get it. I also don't think they really took advantage of this whole Vectorman can take any form he wants thing. there are times where I can turn into a bomb, or, you know, turn into a fish, and it doesn't really seem to matter. Like, was there any point to that at all? I don't understand the purpose of some of these things. I think this kind of stuff should have some kind of purpose in gameplay, and sometimes they do, don't get me wrong, but there are other times where they seem just thrown in there for no good reason. But other than that, the game is pretty good, and I highly recommend it. So naturally, a sequel made sense, but considering Vectorman 2 was released in 1996, this was really late in the Genesis' life cycle. As for the game itself, well, it's not bad. It's definitely got the same type of Vectorman style, the running, the shooting, the running, things like that. But it's got a lot of things that I really don't like about it. Let me just start things up with the story. You know, we start things off and we have a pretty nice intro cutscene that's pretty well rendered, but there's no text to explain what's going on. Maybe you're not supposed to know, but your enemies in this game, you find out, are bugs. Bugs. Great. That's great. That's not nearly as threatening to me. That to me is I don't know. I find that just lazy. But you know, the story doesn't make the game. You know what else is bad about it? What else does Darkness not like about the game? Well, how about the fact that the first frickin' level in the game, past the descent point, is a fucking swamp level? How about that? Does that sound fun to you? Because it doesn't sound fun to me. I hate swamp levels. They're never fun. Ever! God, why would you do that? Swamp level? Ow! There's just slime and muck and fucking bugs. And the best part about this is that they decided that the first level should be more of a maze and a less conclusive line to follow, and thanks for that, because I like getting lost in the very first, basically the first level in the game. That's great. That is awesome. You are awesome. That is, god damn it! And then the second level is one of those levels where you have to climb something, and if you fall all the way back down. That's what this level, and we're still in the swamp too, which is even better because I mentioned in the first game they rehashed some environments, but they didn't do it all at once, and it wasn't, you know, in a row. But here it's it's swamp and then more swamp. Oh, that's awesome. And they kind of try to do it like acts, sort of like in the Sonic games, where you know you're in a zone and then you do one act of the zone, then you do another one, and I kind of get that. But when the levels are so frustrating, I don't really want to see them anymore. Ever. At all. I mean, and I can't really bitch about it too much, because the main gameplay, like the actual core game mechanics, are basically the same, which is good, because they were awesome in the first game. The running, the shooting, like I already went over. So there's nothing really wrong with the gameplay in itself, it's the level design that's killing me here. And then right after you beat the boss of the swamp level, you know what they give you? The fire level. Really? Why? You put the fire level right after the fucking swamp level. I hate you people. You have any idea how much time I spent as a kid trying to get through these two levels without dying? Because, let me tell you, it was a long time. I don't know what is it with me and fire levels, but I always seem to hate them. Because they're always the same. Fire, lava, touch the lava, you die horribly, lava, fire, die, just die you. They're always like that, and I can't tolerate that. In fairness, I will say the graphical presentation, which was really good in the first game, is actually even better in Vectorman 2, if you can believe that. Check out the fire in the background. Doesn't that look cool? It looks actually real, which is pretty fantastic when you consider this is still a 16-bit game. And I will admit that the fire level is where the game starts going a little bit easier on you, in terms of, you know, not getting lost, because the fire level is basically one straight line, so great, that's good. And also, this is where the power-ups actually start coming into play, at least in terms of being useful. Instead of getting all the power-ups from the same place, this time the game actually has you take the transform power-ups from your enemies. So you can actually take the forms of various bugs. Great, you know, that sounds terrible, but it's actually really helpful. For one, in the fire level, did you know that scorpions don't get hurt by lava? I didn't know that. But it's true. Apparently. Actually, no, if you have a pet scorpion, don't test that. They will die horribly. But my point is that actually these transformations are actually taking precedence in the game. They're actually becoming useful, which is actually a better element than the first game, which is rare for me to say because there's a lot about the second game that I don't like compared to the first. This is one part of the second game that is actually better. So there you go. There you go. I can say good things about the second Vectorman game. I will say the game is actually a lot harder, which, great, because the first game beat my ass enough. But the second game, I don't know, I feel like I get my ass kicked way more. Maybe it's because I don't like it as much. Maybe it's the level design that's killing me. The bosses seem to take more damage. Maybe that's part of it. I don't really know. But to stop bitching for a moment, there are actually levels in Vectorman 2 that take full advantage of Vectorman's transformation ability. There's levels where he's just skating. There's actually a level where he's a tank, which is pretty badass. There's a lot to like here, and there's a lot of good ideas thrown in. But really, the level design never really gets any better. If it wasn't bad enough that the first two levels were already pains in the ass, they start really rehashing level designs late in the game, like over and over and over again. And yes, the designs are always different, and the layouts are different, but the fact that I keep going back and forth between what is essentially the same damn level is incredibly frustrating, because the first game, again, never did that. All the levels at least felt different for the most part until later. And even then, that was a bit of a nitpick because the levels at least, were shaded differently. Vectorman 2 doesn't even do that. I guess I'm just saying that there's a lot about Vectorman 2 that just isn't as good as the first one. And that's kind of one of the things about sequels you have to watch. If you don't make a sequel that's at least as good as the first one, people are going to be disappointed. And I admit, I was a bit disappointed by Vectorman 2. And like I said, the visual presentation is really fantastic, and there are a lot of good ideas here. The music is still just as good, and I'm not saying Vectorman 2 is a game you shouldn't pick up and play, and I'm not saying it's bad, it's just not as good as Vectorman. But, it's still a solid game, and I still would highly recommend you giving it a try. But just know that you're probably not going to like it as much as the first one.
So, whatever happened to Vectorman? You have a successful series here, why wouldn't you make a third installment to it? Well, Sega did back in the early 2000s. I looked it up, and, well, this is what we had. Oh my god, what have you done? Okay, alright, I'm gonna take a step back, cause this is alpha footage, and really, it's hard to judge a game, especially considering the game was cancelled, off of alpha footage. But considering what we have to work with here, let's go into this constructively.
To say that the game looks bad is probably an understatement. It looks like one of the most generic third-person shooters in the universe. Visual design is questionable. The actual gameplay mechanics look nothing like Vectorman. Hell, Vectorman doesn't look anything like Vectorman. Look at this. Does this look like Vectorman to you? No, it doesn't. See, because Vectorman's like made of orbs, and this guy isn't at all. The hell? You know what? How do you miss that? That's kind of an important piece of character lore, that he's made of orbs and he can transform into anything he wants. You've completely given that away. Plus, he's using actual guns, which is something else that he never did, because all his weapons came out of his hands. He had plasma shots that he doesn't use at all in this game. The physics actually look really good, like honestly. The whole throwing enemies and stuff, that looks actually good.
And as it turns out, through my research, I found an interview with one of the members of the development team for Vectorman 3. And there was going to be a lot more to this than meets the eye. What we see now is very generic, but they were going to add things like grappling hooks, jetpacks, there was going to be almost completely destructible environments, you were going to be able to throw any object, or almost any object, including enemies, which you can actually see in the alpha footage, and there was a pretty good physics engine going into this. So it's not fair to say that the final product of the game, whatever it may have been, would have been bad. Actually, from the sounds of it, especially considering they were developing this in the early 2000s, this could have been a pretty innovative title in terms of being a third-person shooter. But it's not Vectorman. I'm trying to understand this. You have a character whose sole function, whose sole gimmick, is that he has the ability to transform into basically anything he wants. And that's not good enough for you?
Maybe on its own, as a standalone title, it would have been pretty decent, but not as a Vectorman game.
I don't get it. I don't understand why you would go in and completely change the concept of a game that already had a pretty good concept working with it. After all, once you change a game as much as they did, it suddenly becomes unfamiliar, and that was exactly what Vectorman 3's problem was. After they released the alpha footage, it got a pretty negative reception, so it's believed that because of that, the game was cancelled, which I can't say I blame Sega for doing that. I understand what the dev team was trying to do. I mean, after all, from the interview, it sounds like this game was gonna be something a little bit innovative in terms of being a third-person shooter, but it wasn't the same kind of game, and you can't call a game Vectorman and have it not be Vectorman. And that was what the game's problem was overall. Will we ever see another Vectorman game? I don't know. That's a very good question. It's not impossible, but I'm not sure whether I want to see it, because as soon as they bring it back, there's a chance they could screw it up, and Sega just managed to get Sonic back on track, but who knows, maybe someday. But I do have one more complaint. And this is a pretty big one with me. Now recently, Sega just released Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing Transformed, which, if you don't know exactly what the gimmick of that game is, it's that in mid-game there are certain sections where the vehicles the characters use will transform into things like planes and boats, including, the regular cars. Now, Vectorman is not in this game at all as far as I know. At all. So let me get this straight. You have created a spin-off game with all of the Sega All-Stars, where its sole gimmick is that the cars transform, and you don't include the character whose big gimmick is that he can transform. The motherfucker could be his own car. I don't get it. I don't get it. That to me would be a no-brainer, but whatever. I'm not Sega. Till next time, this is Darkness, and I bid you all a fond farewell. Hey guys, I know this is like new thing. Yeah, a new thing. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Cause see, from what I hear, the new thing to do with the video end thing is to make an end roll as opposed to usual credits like I have been doing, and add some nice effects and then put little mini videos that you can click on, because apparently you can't handle regular links. They're just too much for you to go and actually watch some of my other videos that you may or may not have watched. Of course, if you've been a long-time subscriber, you've probably already watched the videos that I'm going to put links to, which may irritate the shit out of you, and you should just not click them. Or if you want to watch them again, you can click them. But maybe you do. Maybe you're new. Maybe you have never seen me before in your life, and you want more. You just need more. Well, good sir or ma'am, you will get more by clicking on those links. See, down this direction, we have my ever popular Sonic CD review, which was pretty good, I think, from what I hear. And then down here in that direction, yeah, because I can point, we have my more recent Sonic R review, because I review a lot of Sonic games and shit, because I'm like, I have to, it's a rule. So, if you're interested in either of those two reviews that I have done in the past, you should check them out, because those are the only two links I'm putting up right now, because they might actually get you to subscribe. Of course, you can also subscribe just outright, because I intend on making more, and you'll get more. Yeah, most of you probably stopped watching a while ago, so I'm done. I'm out of here.